Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the interview time of Loop Story Time. I have the wonderful Sarah Mount with me. Sarah Mount of Pamlico Sound, Sarah Mount of the Shush Roswell Live Band, Sarah Mount of Music Minor, Sarah Mount of Chemistry, of every group in Colorado, pretty much that has a saxophone player. That you're a part of that. How you doing, Sarah?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for the amazing introduction.
Oh, hey, thank you for being you and doing what you're doing in the music scene. It's pretty awesome to be able to see everything that you do throughout all of this time. So
Oh, I appreciate that. Well,
who
it's
we
right back at you. Right
oh
back
you
at
shush.
you.
Well, we got a nice long hour to talk, but let's introduce you to all of the lovely people tuning in right now. Tell us a little bit about Sarah Mount. How'd you get started? How'd you get? Tell us about your starting on music. Tell us about that.
All right. Well, it starts a long time ago when I was 9. So that was when I started playing. And I went to like a band demo. Do you remember when we had those?
Yep.
And you could just like everybody was playing all the instruments and you can go kind of try them out and stuff, and I was just really drawn to the sax because I thought it was really pretty. That's straight up the reason. It had nothing to do with the sound or anything. I was like, oh, that's beautiful, I would love to play that. And then I picked it up and have put it down here and there, but pretty much have been playing for the most part ever since. So that would be about 27 years ago.
Rock on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you're a Colorado native, just like me, correct?
Yes. Yep.
I grew up down in South Littleton, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So I grew up right off of like Jackass Hill, if people are familiar with the area. And so I went to Heritage High School and did marching band and all that stuff too. So
my first year teaching was actually at Heritage High School.
Yeah, I think we've chatted about that before.
Yeah,
it's super cool.
I graduated from Littleton, so I was right down the way from you. A few years later, but right down the way from you.
That's right.
And so from when we've talked, you kind of have a family history of being involved in music, right?
A little bit. So my dad was a bass player, and he started the Telluride Bluegrass Festival in the mid 70s. I have pictures somewhere. I could literally go pull them up. But him and I believe 2 other bands ended up starting that festival from the ground up. I mean, they played, the first one was on the back of a truck for like 200 people in a field. And last time he played it was in 1997 or 96, something like that. So, and yeah, he played with a lot of really cool people, other than the, Bluegrass Festival. He played with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and some other really well-known country bluegrass bands, which is super cool. So he had a pretty cool career. And yeah, I guess, some part of me wants to say that it runs in the blood, but I know better because it's a practice skill, right? You know this.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Anyone can be a musician. It just takes a lot of determination and a lot of practice.
I think the thing that cracks me up about that statement of like anyone can be a musician, but no one realizes how much it sucks at the beginning to be a musician.
Oh my God. The learning curve is so hard, and you just are so embarrassed, like constantly. Just constant.
I have tape recordings from when I was practicing trumpet back in like sophomore year of high school that are just like tape recordings, cassette players that I had to listen back to yourself, and it was just so bad. And you're like, oh my, how did I even get to where I am? It's just practice, yep. And a refusal to quit.
It's practice, and then having a little bit of shamelessness, like just a little bit. I remember I was in, I believe, 7th or 8th grade, and we were playing, I've always been, like, as far as being chaired, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was always, up there. So I ended up getting solos a lot and all that stuff. But I remember I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, and soloing used to make me super nervous. I had to do it like thousands of times before I stopped being super nervous. But back then, it was like, I would shake my stomach, everything. And I practiced for this solo. It was for a Star Wars song. And I stood up to play it at the show, and I just bombed. Like, something happened to my reed, and it was all shattered. And It was nothing but squeaks. It was literally, oh, and this is my,
Hello.
hi. It was nothing but squeaks at all, and it was so embarrassing. And I played my way through the solo, even though my horn was basically like not functional because the reed. And I just made it through the show. I went home and I cried for like 2 days straight. I was so embarrassed. But you know, and it takes a lot of moments like that, like humbling moments where you just bomb in front of a bunch of people to understand that it happens, and the more you practice, the less it happens. And also, as far as the crowd goes, they're either a musician and they feel for you, right? They're like, oh man, that poor person, because I remember when that, because everyone has a story like that,
Been
right?
there before, yeah.
Yep. Or they're not a musician and they honestly like don't even know the difference. And I've learned that the hard way. And also something that one of my mentors throughout the years have taught me, that like the beautiful thing about music is that it's always moving, so it's a fleeting thing. So you mess up, oh, before you even realize it, it's already behind you. Like just keep on going, you know.
I think that's a good lesson right there, because I mean, you've been there. It happens all the time where I'll have a bad solo at a show and my night is completely ruined. That
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like, I'll walk off stage and Alyssa will be like, oh, that was awesome. I'm like, yeah, but did you hear? And she's like,
Yep.
well, no, I didn't. You're like, no, but if like you go back and hear like that one thing, and it ruins your day. But then it's exactly, it's fleeting. It's the moment that
It's
you
gone.
mess up, it's
Yep.
gone.
It's gone. So
And
don't worry about it.
don't worry about the mistakes.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Just kind of accept that, and then past that, it's like do your best. Don't worry about it. You know,
Yeah.
next show will be better, and it's really fun. It's cool to live in the moment all the time. I feel like it forces you to be present all the time.
Yeah.
Which is cool. You know, when you are playing that show, all you're concerned about is what's happening right now. Not the state of the world, not, you know, your family and friends, nothing but like what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That's a cool way to think about it, because it exists in that moment alone, and that show will never exist again. The energy
Exactly.
of that show will never exist again. And so when did you start finding like high chair placement through like middle school and high school, and then so when did you start finding music being professional musicianship being your path of like success? Because I know we're gonna get to your art stuff in a little bit, but you've been hustling and hustling and hustling for as long as I've known you, and probably years before that. So how did you find that success, and what kind of drew you into that?
Oh man, that's a very loaded question, and I'll tell you why. Because so I played your chaired through high school. I even played in college. I studied a little bit in college. I made it through like one semester of theory and one semester of music history. So I was like, this close to getting a music minor. But after that, I was living in Crested Butte at the time. I was super into snowboarding. There is literally zero music scene out there. Any kind of act that was local was brought in. It was like a national act that, you know, drove in for you guys have played Crested Butte, right?
Not yet. We're trying to get down there. But we definitely, that's something that is a goal for us in the coming months.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great little ski town, super progressive, and it's really, I had a blast. I was super into snowboarding. So I just kind of put my horn down for like 6 years, and I didn't really expect to pick it back up again. I was like, oh yeah, you know, that was fun for a while. I did it in college. It was fun. But while I was living out there, I ended up getting run over by a car as a pedestrian. This was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I suffered a lot it was a slow speed accident, which is super good. I mean, The guy was going probably like 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is still pretty bad. But I ended up under his car, and I suffered a lot of injury, especially to the left side of my body. And then I did a TBI, so a traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
And it was a big struggle. I stayed in the hospital, I believe, overnight, if I remember correctly. Everything's fuzzy, honestly, about the whole thing. My sister was with me. She saw everything, and she's still traumatized from it. But anyways, through recovery, I was having issues with talking slowly. I couldn't find words, like really simple words too, not just hard, tough words, but really simple concepts. I couldn't I couldn't communicate basically. It was just like really slow recovery about like 6-8 months in. And so my doctors who I was seeing, they were like, well, you'd mentioned that you used to be a musician. You should probably pick it back up again because it'll be really good for you and your healing. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a pretty cool idea. So I picked it back up and I could remember maybe like 3 notes. And so I kind of retaught myself everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just spent a lot of time. It was like my thing because I had nothing else better to do. I was basically couch bound for a solid, I don't know, year. I was pretty much like on bed rest kind of. I had shoulder surgery and my whole body was just a giant bruise basically. So
Wow.
Bone bruises. It was just, yeah. So I just took it really easy. So I had nothing else going. So I was like, okay, I'll just do this music thing. It'll be great. So I retaught myself everything. In that time, I ended up moving back to Denver to be like closer to my family and everything like that. And so when I came back, I ended up joining a community band.
Okay.
And so I played with the Mile High community bands, so like jazz and concert bands. And I don't know, about a year in, I started getting like gig offers, So I just said yes. And then it's been 10 years almost of just saying yes to the calls and the Instagram messages and basically anybody who's like, hey, I have this thing for you. You want to come play? I'm like, yes.
I mean,
that's it.
That's how we met. That's how we met. We were looking to bring on. It was our Gothic show that we were looking to expand upon. And it was you and I hadn't really talked much by that point. It was just like I was new into the scene and just started seeing your name pop up on every single thing on Instagram. And it was just like I should probably figure out who this person is. And I don't know if you feel this, but I feel in Denver there are like 7 people. Like the Kevin Bacon effect, that if like 7 people in Denver, you're connected to everyone in Denver.
Totally.
Do you feel like you are one of those people?
Do I feel? No, I don't. I don't feel like I'm one of those people. I get a lot of things reflected back to me that I don't necessarily agree with, which is really weird. But I just I appreciate all the jobs and all the calls and stuff like that. Do you think I am? Do you think I'm?
I absolutely do. And like, I mean, through our friendship, through our time together, you see that you play with everyone. If there is a band or a producer that doesn't typically have a horn section, like you and the Wickalack brothers are usually the ones getting the call. And
we do play a lot together. It's true, yeah.
And like that, I think is like there's the school of like you have a band that you are with, and that is your baby, and you go and do the occasional things. But it seems as though you kind of wear the jack of all trades, where it's like, who is she going to be playing with this weekend? Because you have Shush Roswell coming up.
I do.
You have the Pamlico Sound coming up. You
Yep.
have done. I mean, we can talk about the projects you've done over COVID and the people that you've played with over COVID and over the past few years and talk for an hour and a half. And so tell me a little bit how like the Cervantes crew and like the relationships that you fostered through that. How did you get in with like the Cervantes Jam Band Electronic Scene group?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so one of my foots in the door as far as the scene goes, because I'm going to go back to where we left off on that last story. So I started getting calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started my own little projects and stuff like that. Those started to get shows at, Larimer Lounge, Lost Lake, the rounds, of the venues. And then I got a show at the Fox with an electronic duo in 2015. And that's where Al Laughlin from the Samples found me.
Okay.
And have you heard of the Samples?
Yeah, I used to know their keyboard player, Trevor Hooster.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to do dueling pianos with him back in the day.
Nice.
So.
Perfect. Yeah. So
right?
Al was one of the founding members of the Samples. So he was founded with Sean Kelly and Jeep and him. I forgot who the guitar player was, but the other guitar player or bass player. And so he found me at the Fox, and then he picked me up, and I started playing, Frozen Dead Guy Days and all this stuff. And then through that duo, I ended up at Cervantes with the Monday Night Menagerie.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I had just started getting into the music scene as Monday Night Menagerie was shutting down.
Oh,
And so
okay.
like
Yep.
because I remember I was trying to get involved with like me and Beef, our trombone player. We were trying to get like a trio, like our fat ass brass of like improvisational horn section jamming.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, where would this fit? And a friend was like, oh, Monday Night Menagerie is the place to go.
Yep.
And then like right as we were trying to start doing something with that was right as it was like, oh, it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And
It was, I don't
so,
know. It's disappointing. No, totally. I'm sorry. No, there's like that latency, of
yeah.
course, too. Um, so that was a really cool little scene because it was all about the like the culture and the I don't know, just it was kind of like a festival. It was almost
Mm-hmm.
like a festival every Monday. I mean, there were artists, there were live painters, there were performers, and Doran Joseph, what's his last name? Doran, God, I forgot his last name, but that's what he goes by on Facebook. He's the one who started that up.
Okay.
And he basically would say, yeah, sell these tickets, but if you guys want, you can keep the money. So you were kind of playing for whatever you sold your tickets for, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, which was really cool. So he basically pocketed, he basically out of his own pocket spent the money to rent, Cervantes every Monday night, and then just had his friends come play. And if they made money, awesome. If they didn't, cool. And it was this thing that we all loved so much. And that's kind of how I met everyone I know in the jam scene, like
Yeah.
everyone. Like my boyfriends, that's how I met Cody and Zeta June, Wonderlick, so Alan Galton's band. I'm pretty sure I saw Zagriculture there. I mean, I've seen all the people who are doing things I first saw at Monday Night Menagerie,
Oh, that's
which is
awesome.
super cool. Yeah, super, super cool. So that was kind of my introduction. And between the duo I had and then Al Laughlin's band, that's kind of how I started getting busier and getting, on stages. And then somebody would be like, oh my God, I need a sax player. And then they'd hire me for whatever. And yeah, but Al Laughlin was definitely, I credit a lot to him. A
Okay.
lot.
Al Laughlin, thank you for what you've done for Sarah Mac
Yeah,
if you're out there
thank you.
watching.
Thank
So,
you. Highway 50.
Highway 50.
Yeah.
So you have all of these projects. Do you have a group that you call home, or are you kind of like a nomad in your mind of projects that you work with?
I would say the closest thing to home would probably be the Rushmores, but I do consider myself nomadic. I consider myself kind of on my own. And I don't necessarily really need, to have kind of a home-based band,
Mm-hmm.
because I do have a lot of things where I'm hired gun or I'm doing session work or I'm working for my agencies,
Mm-hmm.
and they keep me super busy. So probably I would just say that I just kind of find it in myself, but Rushmore's a family for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where I get all of my, like, where I scratch that itch. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
some of the bands, like when I played with Float Like a Buffalo,
Yeah.
you guys handed me the parts. I did what I got to do, and that's a really good way to be successful.
Yeah.
When people want you to play a part, just show up and play it, play it as a section, blend with your other horn players. No need to be a hero, just play the parts I want. And people are happy. And then, as far as like getting the passion, like, your purpose, you have a band to do that with. You're lucky to do that. And that's kind of the Rushmores for me.
That's all.
So that's kind of where I'm able to like do my thing.
Well, you said it. We're like, oh, I'm looking for a saxophone player right now. And that's how it felt when Float first started. When we first joined Float, where it was like, hey, we're thinking about adding a horn section, and I'm sitting in the back of my mind like, yeah, I'm sure you guys are.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're super excited to add a horn section to your band because it's this one-off gig, a thing that let's try it out, let's see how it fits. Never anticipated it turning into what it did, but where it's like, oh yeah, I think it would be. I saw a band with a horn section. I just need to do that, but the music doesn't allow the parts for it, or you're just your decoration on stage, and you're not actually
Right.
a crucial part of the orchestration of the song. But So then, when you started performing, you said about 10 years ago was when you got into this, and you've been doing that ever since. Is there
Yep.
a specific performance to you out of all of the projects, out of all of the venues, out of all of the stuff? Is there a specific venue that you think about and go, "Yep, that was the show. That was
Ooh.
the show that I think back on to this day that I knew meant something different than any other show that I've played."
Oh, that's a great question. Oh man, that's tough. I've done a lot of really. I mean, I can't, am I allowed to say all of them? Am
You
I
can.
allowed?
You absolutely can.
Am I allowed to say that I love all my bands like family? Like I don't have, I love all my shows the same. It's weird. It's kind of like, you have pets, right?
Yes.
And you love them equally but differently,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about all shows, all bands. I'm so happy to be involved, and just, I don't know. I mean, I could probably break it down better if like I was to categorize,
Yeah.
like biggest show, most impactful show. I could probably, tell you like, Levitt. I played a reggae festival at Levitt, and that was the biggest crowd I've played for, and that was like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. Oh, something like that. And that I remember it was terrifying. It was terrifying. They had, you probably know with the Red Rock shows, how scary it can be. And just, I remember I was fine. I was doing just fine until I looked over and they had that giant TV screen and I saw myself on it and I was like, oh my God. And just too much.
Levitt's a great venue. Unfortunately, the time that we played it had rained all that day, and so there was like 25 people there, and you're like, oh, I imagine that this could be really, really cool someday.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
Let's categorize it a little bit. You have your biggest show, which is Levitt with 3,000. What was your? I mean, do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite thing that like? I'm trying to think of the. I'm trying to.
It's so hard.
Like, what's the most fun you've had at a show?
Oh man, God, this is so hard. I'm flipping through. God, like thousands.
I mean, 10 years.
I
10
mean,
years of performing,
and I did average out just because I was wondering. I did an average one time because I typically play, like 4 times a month in the winter, non-COVID times, like 4 times or so a month in the winter, up to like 4 or 5 times a week in the summer.
Yeah.
And so I averaged it out, and it's a lot. It's a lot. I would say one of the most fun shows I've ever had was with Zeta June. It was at the Fox, and we opened up for Ripe.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Pam, yes. Yeah. And Ripe is amazing. Ripe is amazing.
They're on my top bands to go see.
Yes. Yeah. They're just an incredible band, just all around. And Cody and I were dating at the time. We were new-ish. We were like, God, what were we, like 6 months, 7 months in, something like that. But we had so much fun, and I got to sit in with, I love those guys. I mean, I've been fans of Cody's band since way before we started dating.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was super cool to play, and those guys are all my friends. I mean, I play in other groups with them, and we do crossovers, and so that was probably the most fun I've ever had because it's really fun, playing with your significant other. It's so much fun.
I'm sure you and Alyssa can relate on it of liking your significant other's band's music.
Yes.
We
definitely.
always joke about how hard this would be if like our band sucked, or it was like an alt indie screamo punk rock. And it's like, hey, we have 15 shows this month. You want to come to every single one? You're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh no, not really. So that was a highlight for me for sure. It was just I don't know. Those guys are so cool, and they've all been together for like 8 years or so. So they're basically brothers.
Yeah, they started at Berkeley together, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think it was I want to say it was like University of Iowa or something. Yeah, I should know this stuff. I'm sorry. Sorry, Cody. I know he's gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
You're like, sorry. And then I would say, I mean, playing with people who are really good and somewhat famous is always really fun as well. I would say a highlight for me as far as that goes. One of my last shows I played before COVID, we played for the Groove Safe All Stars band.
Yeah.
I played in that horn section, and I mean, I played with people who I've been listening to since forever.
Yeah.
I was playing with like people from Lotus and Dopapod and Magic Beans and all that stuff, and so all those people, I mean, it's just incredible, and they level you up as a musician too.
You have to.
You
You
know?
have to.
Yeah, oh, you literally have to, because otherwise you're just like, and Andy Frasco was there, and they like just jumped on stage and led a little jam for like 10 minutes, and it was so much fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's a highlight. I played with Joel Cummins from Umphreys at Bianchi like 2 years ago. That was a highlight. He's
Very
the nicest
cool.
guy ever. And then, yeah, it's just kind of those weird off stories, you know?
The
Just
ones where you're
that kind
sitting
of
in,
stuff.
you have no clue who's popping up, and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. I sat in a jam night with Borum Lee on keys at the Meadowlark, and I had no idea who he was. And I was like, this guy's really good at keyboard. And then like 2 weeks later, I'm looking at like break signs pops up. I'm like, oh,
Oh.
wow,
Yeah.
okay. Those guys, like, beyond the fact of just the fame and the skill, they're so good.
They're so good.
They're just such good musicians.
Yeah.
And like you said, it just levels you up, because what else no one wants to embarrass themselves on stage. And at the 7th grade level, people will give you a little bit of leeway if you're squeaking through a solo, but you go and drop a turd in the middle of sitting in with some big people, you just won't get that call again.
Yeah, you might quietly be asked to leave.
Yeah, it's like,
you know.
Oh, that was super cool. So we're gonna bring up some other friends to sit in with us.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining.
exactly.
You're like,
oh, yeah, exactly. Bye.
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna go cry for 2 months now. This time instead of 2 days.
Right. The flip side of it, we don't always get to sit in with we don't always get to sit in with the big stars. We don't always get to sit in front of. What is the worst show you have played? And it doesn't matter if it's besides the 7th grade concert.
that was my one. That was probably my worst performance. God, that's a great question. I've had many issues before on stage, and sometimes it's in front of the people, and sometimes it's actually like during sound check. But one time, Sass Factory, we were performing in Steamboat. I forgot the venue. Help me. It's there's like Schmiggity's.
Yeah.
So I was at Schmiggity's, and we had just driven up. You know, we were kind of like just over it a little bit, just from the drive. I mean, that drive's not the funnest drive ever. 3.5
hours, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe it was in the spring or early summer, and so I mean, there was no snow or anything. It was fine, but we're kind of over it. We show up, do the sound check, and during sound check, I could not hear myself at all. Like I had nothing coming out of my wedge.
Yeah.
And so the guy who was running sound was just like, I don't know what the problem is. Let's just keep going. And we kept going, and we kept running song, and I could not hear anything. And I was telling him, my girls were telling him, like, yo, dude, we cannot hear anything out of this wedge. Like, I'm nothing. And so he's just getting more and more annoyed as the evening is going on. He's just like, oh, and he's just rolling his eyes and stuff. So finally, he like kind of just grumbles and just jumps out of his chair, comes up to the monitor, and it wasn't on.
Oh, Jesus.
It wasn't on the whole time. And I kept telling him, I'm like, is this thing on? Like, what is going? Because literally nothing. And so no apologies, no nothing. He just turns it on, goes back, and of course it's working perfectly. And so that's just like, I don't know. That's stuff right there. Sometimes it sets the tone in not the best of ways, I would say.
Oh yeah. You've driven 3 hours. You go up, and like, it's when you want to be treated like the talent and are not treated like the talent.
Yeah.
I think that's the harder part for any musician, where you're like, okay, we're here. I've honed my craft. I am here to perform. I'm here to be a part of it. And whether it's sound or just venue or something, you don't want to demand respect because I'm an artist.
Yeah,
but you also need to have things kind of going the way that you need them to go, or else your artistry that you perform is going to kind of fall through the cracks a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, it's just, I would just love to be taken a little seriously enough to when I'm saying to you, excuse me, sir, my monitor is not working. I'm hearing absolutely nothing. I'm putting my foot on it. I'm feeling no vibrations, nothing. To just, instead of getting annoyed, just maybe for a second, like troubleshoot, try to figure it out. It typically is something dumb, like it's not on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it a million times, but just, it's the difference of being annoyed versus, you know, being like, oh, you know, I should probably look into this a little deeper, other than just saying, it's fine, we'll figure it out, or I don't know what the problem is, or it's your fault, or you know what I mean? Or just kind of like turning it back on you. It's just, my expectations are pretty low. Like, I don't expect people to lay out the red carpet. I just want your basic bare minimum, you know, like treat me like a person.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm telling you right now, if there's an issue, I'm going to say it. And if there's not, I'm going to be fine. It's all good, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
So that kind of leads me to the next question. As an industry that is very much, with a lack of a better term, a boys' game, where do you, as a prominent female figure in this industry, have you run into some challenges that you have you run into some challenges of just misogyny and sexism that you've had to confront over the years?
Absolutely. I would be shocked if any woman in the industry has not dealt with it in one form or another.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like the Schmiggies thing, is that to say, is it like, Sass Factory, bunch of chicks, and it's like, come on, dude, it like.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, and honestly, so Cody was with us, and so he was there. He watched the whole thing, and he told me after it happened, in between sound check and our show, he was just like, "Man, that's never happened to Zeta June. Like, if we can't hear something, people are on it. They come right up. They figure it out." And he was the one who actually said, "I don't know, man. I think he did that because you guys are a bunch of ladies, you know?" And I didn't even, it is. It's really frustrating. I don't even know if I notice, because it happens so often in microaggressions, that I'm not even sure if I notice all the times it actually happens. I think it might go like this, unless it's like a macro aggression, in which case I am very vocal. I'm very vocal. And I'm very vocal for a bunch of different reasons. One of the main reasons is because if I'm vocal, it weeds out the people who would possibly be trying to pull a fast one on me. I mean, you can scroll through my Facebook for but 5 seconds and find that, like, I'm not putting up with it. I will put you on blast. I will put you on blast on behalf of other ladies with their permission, you know? I've got no problem not working with somebody. If I find out something about somebody and I do a little digging and I find out, oh, hey, this person has done this a bunch of times and they're like a serial predator, I will not work with them. Like, I've got no problem. There's plenty of people. Everyone's awesome. I don't need to deal with that stuff.
Well, with COVID especially, everyone keeps talking about the cancel culture, why are we canceling people? And the dawning of it is like, because they don't deserve the success that they're getting for the stuff that they're doing to people. You don't get to be an asshole in an industry that promotes love and equality and this open community that is the music scene. You don't get to preach one thing and then be a hypocrite on the other side. And so it's like, well, why are these people getting canceled? Well, the dude has sexually assaulted 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 women, and until someone says something, and like, to be the voice that helps people find that takes courage on the person who's been the victim of that, but then to have a support system behind them that goes, this is not okay. And you see so many, how did this, I believe in the artist. You're like, man, this person is profiting and continuing to find their successes and continuing to find fandom and fame and glory and idolization to a certain degree when they just don't deserve it.
Exactly.
And so, good on you for being the voice. Good on you for helping people find theirs. It's a
Thank you.
It's a hard place to be in, because I as a straight white male, I'm opening my eyes to that side of it. But if no one says something, then no one will say something.
Exactly. It'll just continue. And, you know, I am here to make the world a better place, whether people like it or not. And I'm not gonna put up with that. And I want the ladies behind me who are gonna fill my shoes one day, or even today. Like, I can't be everywhere at once. People who are a little younger, who might not know any better, I want them to come up onto the scene and have a little bit nicer of an experience, because it can be really ugly out there, and it's not okay. There's no excuse. It's not okay to do some of these things. It's just not.
And I think that's the biggest part where it's like, well, why is this happening? It's not okay. And,
it's not.
And the justification saying, and the hemming and hawing of trying to make excuses around it just continues to perpetuate the problem.
Exactly.
Instead of identifying the problem and going, okay, what can we do to fix this? Admitting there's a problem is the first step to healing it. But you have to admit there's a problem first.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I mean, Sarah Mount, social justice warrior for all women in the scene.
I try.
It's incredible to watch, because it takes a lot of strength, and it takes a lot of, with a lack of a better term, a lack of I don't give a fuck, where it's like, I don't care if I don't work with this person again. This needs to be said. I don't care if I don't work at this venue again, because so many of us will question our morals just a little. Oh, but this is a really big booker, and I really want to play at this venue again. Or that's a really big person of a band, and I potentially want to open for them. Why?
Yep.
Well, opportunity. But the opportunity you're perpetuating comes from this bullshit. And
yeah, it's tainted. It's dirty.
Yeah, exactly. So
and there'll be more opportunities, is what I've found through my experience of not being able to do these things, because I personally, and we all have our different ranges of what we tolerate. I am zero tolerance, so I'm shutting it down. Goodbye. And opportunities keep on coming, so it's just keep it rolling. Just keep it going. If this venue wants to work with you, even though they know this, that's up to them. If this person wants to work with you, even though they know, that's up to them. But I am a zero tolerance in the hopes that other people will also be zero tolerance with me, and then can also look around and be like, oh, well, she doesn't put up with that and she still gets jobs.
Yeah.
So
I think Denver's a great city for that, because there is always another opportunity. We have such a bustling music scene, and everyone's like, well, it's not Nashville and it's not Austin, but we're not country and we're not rock and roll, but man, we got jam bands playing 7 nights a week. You have some of the biggest names in this industry that live right here, that are out making music, and if there's always an opportunity to play, no matter where you go. So well, awesome. Well, thank you for being out there and standing up for what's right. And
I'm trying.
I wish more people need to, and it will be a different music scene if everyone does.
I agree. And until then, I'm happy to be a voice for the voiceless, because I get it. I do. I get it. I've suffered my own things, and I know it can be scary, and so I have no problem stepping up, but never without permission. I'm not going to sit there and tell people's stories as if it's my own. But if people say, hey, I need your help, I need you to speak up, I'm happy to do it. So ladies, if you're listening and you need to talk to somebody, I'm your girl.
Sarah Mount, protector of the voiceless.
Of the ladies and the voiceless.
Of the ladies and the voiceless. So now on a kind of flip side of that, so you have this very successful musical career, but the part that blew my mind, and I didn't realize this for a long time, is that you're a friggin' incredible artist. Like, I think that took me by surprise the most, because it's like we'd worked together, we'd played together, we had been following your stuff. And then one day you're like, oh, by the way, Masterpiece Portrait. You're like, just gonna subtly drop that on us after how long?
That's hilarious. Thank you.
Tell like, you haven't been as busy musically over COVID, but I think where God shuts a door, he opens a canvas, and you've been with commissions and your weekly painting and your sponsorships. Tell me a little bit about your art over the past year.
I will. So, first off, I did go to college for art, and I've actually been painting and doing art way longer than music. So I think I've got pictures of me painting when I was in diapers. So probably like two-ish.
Awesome.
And I did go to school. I studied art in college. And then I've had, a career based off of commissions and art gallery shows and publications. And most recently, for the last 10 years, so as long as I've been in Denver, I've been working at Paint and Sip Studios, which you guys have done my classes.
Which we have done the class.
Yes.
We have our 2 Valentine's Day portraits hanging up in our living room right now.
Yeah, I love it.
And for if you're watching this and you're looking at commissions or anything, please hit up Sarah. She gave us a phenomenal portrait of our cat after he passed away. That is like I love it. I look at it every single day and it's spot on. And I mean, like the portrait you did, that was like the mountains plus the wolf plus the weed plus like the space, and it's just you're sitting there go, Jesus, man, how like. You're just dripping in talent, and it's so cool to watch that. So like,
oh, I really appreciate that.
And I think the part that for the layman who watches a musician goes, I could totally play saxophone.
Yeah,
I think that's how more people view painting. You go and watch Bob Ross, and you're like, oh, I could totally paint some happy. Trying to blend your background, you're like, well, this is done. I ruined it. It's like
it's over.
It's all over. Like. You don't realize how hard of a skill that is until you're sitting in a paint and sip with your second glass of wine and you're like, oh man, my trees are ruined. And then you come and save the day. You swoop on over and go, oh, just do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and everything works out.
Yeah, that's how I do my classes for sure. That's basically in a nutshell.
So do you have a favorite commission you've done?
Oh God, you come in with the good questions.
That's what I do. This is week 4 though, so I've had practice.
That's right. Again, if I think about all of the commissions I've done over decades, I mean, again, something I've numbered my art. I've tried to take a picture. I'm pretty good at it, but I've tried to take a picture of everything I've ever done, and I know it's in the thousands.
Wow.
It's up in the 2000s range. So let's just go within the last year. My favorite commission within the last year. Because it's just a lot more for me, for my little tiny damaged brain to handle. But in the last year, I probably have 2 that were my favorites. I did like a jazz triptych, which a triptych is a 3-piece painting. So it's one connected image over 3 different canvases. And this goes back all the way back to like the 11th, 12th century where artists started doing this. So it's, it's very old. But somebody commissioned me to do one of jazz. And it was very particular as far as the musicians that were depicted and the venue, and like everything in there was handpicked by the person who commissioned, my friend. And so I did that, and it turned out pretty cool, I have to say. I'm really, really proud of it. I worked really hard on capturing the likeness of, my people, which is really hard. It's very hard to capture likeness.
Yeah.
Like you can, paint somebody realistically, and it can be very mechanical and very dry, or you can, really pump in some of the essence of somebody. And then it ends up being like, oh yeah, that's this person. Even though it might not look like them all the way, you can still tell who it is because of the way that you've portrayed, who they are. Is kind of it's kind of a weird concept, but I think I really nailed it on that, if I do say so myself. And I'm not one to like pump myself up, but I do know when I've like, when I've done a bingo, where it's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And then my second favorite was the one I did of Graham Good.
Oh, that was such a cool one.
Yeah, that Charlotte commissioned me for as a birthday present. And I had done that in December, because for the second lockdown, I had lost my job again for the second time. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just crank through all these paintings. And so I had finished that. And then we were sitting on that secret for like 2.5 months. And both of us were like, ugh, we really want to show him and tell him, because it was just, we were both so proud of it,
Yeah, and like in that likeness, I mean, Graham Good, he's going to be on the show next episode.
Oh, very
and
cool.
So, the dude just reeks of love. The dude just reeks of passion, and watching him perform is one of the most fun things to watch. And so being able to capture that show was incredible for us, for everyone who was a part of it. But then to be able to capture that emotion that he was portraying while playing at Red Rock, socially distanced with that line. I don't know. It was a very cool painting. I like when Alyssa showed it to me. I was very just blown, like I said, blown away.
Thank you. I was again, when I know that I've really hit my mark, because I have goals. When I approach music, art, whatever it is, I have goals and intentions already in place before I even play a note or put a brush to the canvas. I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And this is what I'm going for. And so when all three of those things are completely fulfilled, it's just like, just, it really feels, you're like, okay, this is good. I'm doing what I'm meant to do. This is great. So that was one of those paintings where it just really came together, and I was super proud, and I was super excited for them to have it. And it's not like all paintings don't have that aspect. It's just that, again, it's like picking your favorite or loving something more than another. It's like, no, I love it all, just differently. Each one's a little different. So
would you believe yourself to be an artist/musician or a musician/artist?
I am whatever anybody wants me to be, but that is
whoever's
the
paying.
question.
That's what I am. Yeah.
It's so funny because how you say, oh yeah, I knew you as a musician, and but I had no idea you were an artist. My artist friends say the same thing about music. They're
Really?
like, oh my God, yeah, like people I work with at the Paint and Sip Studios, or people I do like say a gallery show or whatever with, people I went to art school with. They're like, oh yeah, I had no idea you're a musician. And so I guess it depends on the person of which title comes first. But to me, it's like equal.
You're Sarah Mount.
Yeah, I feel like just the dorky, like dorky weirdo that I've always been. It doesn't, sometimes these things don't connect for me.
Well, for those watching, show off that sleeve real quick for everyone who's never.
Oh,
because like you also just did pretty well in the inked cover challenge, didn't you?
I did. I made it almost to the semifinals.
That's super, and that's
pretty good.
Yeah, like that's awesome, and that's so you see all this, you go, okay, super talented artist, super talented instrumentalist, and then you walk up and you're like, boom, sleeve, and everyone's like, okay, I got to bring my A game right now.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, it's great.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think it's really cool if that is the case. I mean, I love and respect and honor people who do that for me. Is when I show up to something, I'm like, oh, boom, I better bring my A game because this person is, this or that. So I find it's a big compliment coming from you to think that that's kind of what I am to people. But I mean, I knew
that I had to step up my A game when we played together. Like that's because like we had been in such our own little bubble. Like we've played with the same people, and we knew how each other soloed. We knew how each other played. And so when we played Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, and you and I were trading off solos on that, I'm like, okay, I don't get to do the old tricks and tips that I've been doing for 2 years.
Oh,
now.
that's hilarious. I kind of actually had the same thought in my head. It's just like, oh, Luke's going to bring it. I know, like, you got skills, dude.
Oh, well, thank you.
I was like, I need to step it up, and yeah. That was one of my favorite moments, by the way. You guys that show is in my top 10.
That show was like... And
hands down.
For those listening, that was when Float Like a Buffalo headlined the Gothic in 2019? 19, yeah.
19.
Was from the album release party. But yeah. So she came in and sat in on 5 songs?
Yeah, I think it was like 5 or 6, something like that.
And then I definitely did not get you the sheet music when I said I was going to get you the sheet music. So we're practicing for the show, and I'm just singing riffs into your ear, like at the...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like, that show was a blast, and it's one of those things that you have these experiences where you get to work with other musicians, you get to work with other people. That was the first time that we had brought as many guests to be a part of our show. Like our first one, we had the other bands come in and do some stuff with us, but to have sit-in artists that were a part of it, that was the first time we'd really experimented with that. And like I said, it just upped the game. It just upped the standard of what I had to do as a saxophone player, of what the brass section, what Beef and I had to do as a section, because now we had to figure out the proper way to introduce you into our sound that felt natural.
Right, and get
And
that three-part,
get that
thing.
three-part down. And so
Yeah.
then I also had to go through and write all of our music out, which I had never transcribed before. So I'm like, geez, why do I write such like just the rhythm parts? And you're like, this is dumb. Why can't I just write quarter notes?
Seriously, transcribing. If anyone wants to get on the fast track to being a better musician, transcribe.
Yeah.
That will make you so good so quickly. Not only as a player, like executing sound, but also like understanding rhythm, being able to like have something in your head and then match it on your instrument. It's like it will. I mean, so fast. You will just become explosively better.
Yeah, and I thankfully I took theory. I was a music major all through college, so like transcribing was something that I had the skill set of, but it never just I hadn't done it since college. And man, it is a skill set that if you don't use, you will lose.
Absolutely.
And you try to go down and use finale for the first time in 15 years, and you're like,
what is this? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's. Then the flip side, I have a friend who works for Finale, and he's like, I can write an orchestral piece out as fast as you type. And you're like,
that's wow.
Yeah, I'm like, hey man, I need this transcribed. He's like, and done. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Oh, that's so funny. It's so true. Yeah, there are some people out there who are just mind blowing. It's like, I think I'm doing pretty good, and I'm sure you come across these moments too, but you think you're like, yeah, I'm like decent, I'm valid, I'm like, and then somebody comes along and just schools you without even, just by existing, like not even breathe. They just breathe, and you're like, oh my god, I need to quit. Like I'm quitting saxophone. I'm done.
Well, there's the interview 2 weeks ago I had with Mark Megabo from Face. He said something that I really, really appreciated, where he goes, so many of the times we look up and go, well, how do I do what they're doing? And his response was, I can't do what they do as well as them, but I can do what I do as well as I do it. And,
100%.
And that's going to be where I find my fame, because no one's going to walk on me like, well, you were good, but you weren't quite as good as so-and-so. It's like, I'm just going to go up and be the best version of what I put out there. Right. Whether that's art, whether that's music, whether that's dancing, whether that's teaching, whether that's flipping burgers at McDonald's, you do it the best that you're capable of doing it, and don't accept that your way is the best way that you can put that together.
Totally. That's the real approach to life right there.
Just accept that other people are like, what is it, 7 billion people, so that's 7 billion eyes that see the world differently. Right.
I love that. And it's so true. And I'm very self-aware, and as far as what I bring, and it's kind of like, well, I'm going to get mine and you get yours, and there's plenty of room for all of us. And that's what I really love about the Denver music scene. I think that we all get it. Mm-hmm. And I've heard people, I haven't, been a professional in another town or city as a musician, but from what I've heard from people who come here who literally, like, this is the mecca for electronic and jam bands. Mm-hmm. That, Denver's different because, here's a scenario. Like, say somebody's like, oh, yeah, hey, can I get you to come play my venue or whatever? And you're like, no, I'm busy. In other cities, it stops there, right? Yep. But in Denver, you'll say, oh, I'm busy, but here is a list of my friends who are probably available and can play, your venue. Because honestly, when the big picture comes down to it, the more that venue gets, gigs for your friends, even though you can't do it, the more they have business, the more they can stay in business, hire your friends, hire you, and it just keeps going. It's like, a butterfly effect.
Well, and it's not that there's less pie. It's just make the pie bigger. Don't
exactly. Just make more.
I just did that to you. I texted you and went, "Hey, are you available? I can't play a gig." And it's the industry. At least in my personal opinion, the industry is no longer a competitive. It's like it's either you or me. It's like, no, it's you and me. And if I hook you up, there's a good to fair chance that you're going to hook me up. And if we played with you once. Well, we need an opener. So you have a band that's going to be able to either open for us, or some people are going to open for us, and we want to try to get in somewhere. And so it's all about building relationships and fostering relationships, because
Exactly.
the success of one is the success of all in the
Exactly.
long scheme of everything.
100%. And that's what I've heard is the difference in Denver, is that while other places it's more it's you or me, here in Denver it's you and me, and it doesn't matter what instrument you play and what type of music you play. That's the case, and it's really cool, and it has made this music scene huge. I mean, it's massive.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when people say that, oh, it's not the same. Well, no, it's not the same. It's not country. It's not rock and roll. It's not blues. It is a very eclectic scene, but the biggest names in it have found their homes here.
Right.
Like, I think there was a Tuesday night jam session at the Meadowlark that they took a picture afterwards, and it was Borum Lee, Adam Deek, Dominic Lawley, Jeremy Salkin, Rashawn Ross, like Jeff Coffin was sitting in, Borum Lee. Like, it was just it was like 19 of the guys that you're like, I've seen all of you play Red Rocks before.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
listened to your music, and you guys are just chilling it, just kicking it, just gonna go listen and play some jazz.
Exactly. I mean, it's really cool that you can see some of the big, like, some huge national acts just at Appaloosa Grill, at Meadowlark, at these places where you could literally walk right up to them and tell them how you feel about them.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. It's just like that. It's next level. I mean, Denver is literally next level.
It is unlike anywhere else. Like
that. It really is.
I got in a Facebook argument the other day. It's like, why do Coloradans brag about being from Colorado? Being from somewhere doesn't make you special. It's like, special? No. Fortunate? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, do we get to wake up to the mountains every day? We have a very open-minded community.
Yep.
We have a very flourishing art and music scene. We have an ability to create content. And if you're an up-and-coming musician, or you're starting, there is a place for you to play, because that's the biggest part. You're a starting musician. Go make music.
Yep.
There's an open mic, and that open mic will lead to another open mic and another open mic. And those people all will play with groups that play at other open mics, who all play with other, and it's just, it keeps going and going and going and going and going until you end up headlining Red Rocks.
Exactly.
And
oh my God, actually, some of my best friends I met hosting the open jam at your mom's house for, God, how long did I hosted that for like almost 2 years, every month.
Wow.
I did that residency for almost 2 years. That's how the Rushmore started, it was an open roster.
Oh, cool.
And I would change my lineup every month. And just kind of, sometimes we would prepare a set, and sometimes we would just do it on stage and just see what happens. And it was just so much fun. But that's how I met all the people, and like Cover Band Does Okay. So all the guys from Tula, and all of those like pretty big jam scene guys I've met at your mom's house hosting the open jam, because they were like, oh, it's a Tuesday night, whatever, and they would just come and do the thing. It's so cool. I just love it.
The joy of making music is universal.
Yeah.
That is for sure. Well, tell us, so we're going to be finishing up this in the next few minutes, but tell everyone who's listening what's like, this is going to be debuting on Tuesday. We are filming this on the 11th right now. So you got Shiz Roswell this weekend. You have Pamlico Sound this weekend. Where can we find you after the 16th?
So after the 16th, I don't think I have a couple private events. I have one with Imprint, one of my agencies. And then I have a live stream with Highway 50, actually. So that's coming up on the 31st.
Okay.
And then after that, I have a few shows in April. Some of them aren't completely confirmed yet, but some that are. I'm doing a birthday charity live stream.
Okay.
So we have the same birthday, by the way,
we do.
listeners. We have the same birthday, April 23rd.
Taurus.
I think I have like 10 years on you, though. That's the only difference.
You get 6, I think.
Okay.
I think you're the same age as my brother, and so.
Well, I like to round up and make people feel bad for how old I am. So, that's my thing.
How busy you are, no one would know it.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'm doing a birthday charity live stream. So tickets will be available. 100% of the proceeds will go to a husky rescue. Yeah, Jailbreak Husky Rescue. It's this amazing woman named Brooklyn, and she single-handedly runs the entire operation. But what she does is she goes to high kill states like Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and she'll rescue huskies that are about to be, euthanized
Euthanized.
in these pounds, and she'll bring them back to Colorado because Colorado's no kill, and then she'll adopt them out, which is super cool. It's an amazing thing that she's doing, and she works her butt off. And like, I just want to. I've had this thing during COVID where I have this urge to give back and to, even though I'm not like, I don't know, as far as means go, it's not like I'm completely well off, but I know I'm a hell of a lot more well off than a lot of people. And I just have this thing where I really want to help the community in ways that, that I can actually do, and I can put my money where my mouth is, and do these things. So like, hey, I can play music, I can, produce a show, I can put together a fundraiser. So far it's just me and Zeta June. So me and my friends, I'm gonna do like a little like hip hop soul, neo soul set with my friends, and then Zeta June's gonna play their cool, like, I think somebody once called it doom funk or something like that. I just
Doom
think it's so
funk.
perfect. Doom funk. But Zeta June is like jam band meets Lotus. They're very
Okay.
like electronic, but kind of, they can get really ethereal and really ambiguous, but they can also get really, really tight and have some really, they're awesome.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do it so far. I think I'm still looking for one more band to add, but I'll be announcing that soon. That will probably be announced here in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it as far as upcoming. But definitely look me up on Facebook, just by my name, and then Saxy Sarah on Instagram, 2 X's underscore. Just honestly, just plug in my name, and you can see all the things. And
Yeah. Well, Sarah, you're a great friend. You've been a great resource for me throughout all of this. It's been a lot of fun to get to know you over the past few years. So thank you so much for
oh,
being a part of the episode.
yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for
Of course.
having me, and right back at you.
Oh, thank
I
you.
just think the world of you guys.
Oh, well, thank you. So, for those watching, this full interview is going to be uploaded to the Jamcast Network on YouTube. The link will be in the comments below. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Sarah Mount. Thank you for
Yay!
joining us. Check her out on Facebook, Instagram. Check out one of her many projects. Check out her artwork. If you need a commission, she's the place to go. So,
Yes.
see you in 2 weeks. We will have Graham Good from Graham Good and the Painters joining us. And until next time, everyone, stay safe and bye bye.